can you actually go through a meeting and have no one know who you were? Our predisposition with our ego is to say, look how amazing I am, let me peacock. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is one of the biggest issues I have to deal with because venture, this is baked into like the norms. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you about all the amazing things I've done. So that's my goal, is every day to try and show up with a little less ego, a little more curiosity, better question, better listening.
Ryan, I am super excited about the guest that we have today on the Gridiron Growth Podcast. This has been a good friend for almost a couple of years now, Mr. Matt McCall, 28 years of experience in venture capital. Very passionate about helping entrepreneurs, helping people. As a VC, he has backed over 80 companies and generated over $70 billion in exit enterprise value. Everybody, we are super excited about this guest. Mr. Matt McCall, welcome to the show, my friend.
We need some like confetti.
Yeah.
You know?
But Matt, man, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with Ryan and I, as we were just talking before the show started. This is a podcast about getting better. We're getting better from our guests. We hope our guests are getting better from just being in this conversation, but also our listeners. So Matt, would love to just dive in. How did you get your start in venture capital?
I was fifth generation Wall Street, right? Worked on Wall Street, went to Kellogg. I'm going to do consulting, learn about how the master's in manufacturing, because that's, they make stuff. Yeah. And as I came out of the Boston Consulting Group, I thought, okay, I'm going to start applying for, jobs in buyout. It was a good friend of ours, and he'd been in the venture business 15 years. His partner literally started in 76. Like, she took the pitches for Steve Jobs at Apple, seed investor at Bay Network, which kind of helped launch the Boston ecosystem in terms of networking, all that stuff. And they're raising funds. So I had karma, right? Karma equals synchronicity. I said, hey, you know what? You guys have an amazing track record. I know a whole bunch of folks in New York, family, friends, whatever. I'll just help you fundraise while I'm applying to try and get into buyouts. And so, helping him, he said, hey, you want to look at this deal? Sure. But I want to look at this deal? Sure. A day a week, 2 days a week. Next thing I know, I'm a venture capitalist.
And you're doing this for free at the time?
Yeah, I'm just doing it for free. It's karma, right? And this is how it always works, right? The universe always has its back. Pablo Coelho, right? The universe conspires to realize your personal
legend. That's right.
Personal legend. Bingo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? It's the power of your relationship, having extraordinary, authentic people around your life in which you strive to help reduce suffering, help them become the highest version of themselves selflessly, and then amazing things tend to happen.
What is the difference between, what goes into for you when it's a feet first networking? Like, I want to be there, so I'm going to go there. What does that sound like? Is that a phone call? Are you taking a flight?
So the way that I've always approached my life is I say, okay, I want to understand a given topic. And then I'm saying, who is the best domain expert who knows this? And then I just relentlessly hunt to find them down. Every ecosystem has 20 supernodes, 20, 30 supernodes that touch everybody. NFL, Peyton Manning is probably one call away from everybody.
Yeah. Supernode for sure.
Supernode. And so whenever you go into an ecosystem, you kind of want to lay out who are those supernodes. It's what I say, find extraordinary, authentic people. Also, find extraordinary people that are maybe not authentic, just be aware they're really dangerous. And then what you do is you just kind of activate against that. And what you begin to realize is that people start mentioning the same names. Eric was on the show. Eric is one of those.
Yeah, definitely a supernode.
Right?
Yeah.
Supernodes. And so you can very systemically figure out who the supernodes are, who the other nodes are. But then it's really important. Most people then jump in and say, okay, this is all about me. And this is all about my power and my getting a deal and my this. No, it has to be, I want to form an authentic connection with this person. This is how I view my job in life as a VC, is to find extraordinary people and then protect and provide around them so that they can let that divine flow come through and just crush it.
Have you always been relationship forward and focused throughout your entire career?
I would say that it's something that came over time. It's funny. I wrote a blog post on life's 7 to 10 year cycle. So it's kind of like every 7 to 10 years, I get one of these, which is kind of like an economic cycle as well. moments where it was like, okay, we need to go back in and strip things to the studs. I remember we just sold Dollar Shave Club. And about 6 months earlier, we'd interviewed 100 entrepreneurs from Dick Casa and Michael Dubin at Dollar Shave Club all the way to raw startups. How could your VC be most helpful to you?
Leave them alone after investing?
There was definitely a very large group that was like, just give me money and get out of
Yeah.
Hands-on support.
And then it was like, okay, help me with tech. The number one thing, it always started with, I don't trust you assholes further than I can throw you. But who can I turn to on a Sunday night when the demons are running through my head? Because I can't talk to anyone. My spouse is still freaking out I left McKinsey. So I can't tell him or her that we got like 3 months of runway left.
Yeah.
I can't tell my employees. So I just sit here and I don't sleep at night. So I'm like, wow, like this idea of a Sherpa, right? The VC is Sherpa, VC is father, right? And then the second was Michael Dubin's comment, which was, he said, when I went from $1 million to $200 million in revenue, the imposter was just ripping at me the whole time. You've probably,
Before the Super Bowl, I was there,
right? You're like, who the hell do I think I am? I can't do
here?
this. I'm going to be an
in
ass.
the family office world now, or the rooms that we're in, I'm like, what am I doing here? Why me? Am I allowed to be in here?
Who am I? I don't belong, right? And he said, make me a superhero, make me the highest version of myself, make me the best leader, and also my entire team. I'm like, VCs don't do that, right? We show up and get anxietal and transfer that onto the back of the entrepreneur. So $6 million valuation in, $1 billion exit. Everyone's like, what an amazing deal, da-da-da. I just numb the whole day. I didn't want to do another deal because I was on this dopamine dog biscuit thing, and just like any addiction system. And so this was the wake-up call for me. I'm like, okay. When I teach the Good Life class at CUDU and Williams and other places, there are a couple of questions that are just classics for how to think about what's my purpose in life. And it's always calling us, every one of us. We just don't listen to it. But if you really get quiet and you really sit in the seat, and suddenly you're like, wow, this is really rewarding.
Well, what was it in looking at deals? Because that's something that Benny and I, professional athletes, you get brought terrible deals. What are the first three things you're looking at to determine whether or not it's a good deal?
So I teach classes on just this very topic. And I think some of them, it starts with the person, right? Number one, have they lived the problem? Two is, can they evangelize and tell a story? So if I simply said to you, dog, fence, microphone, carpet, Tesla, I went through 20 items and I said, okay, tell me what I just said. You'd be like, dog, whatever.
Yeah.
But if I said scarecrow, lion, Tin Man, white dog,
Red shoes.
You know what you just did? This is the power story. All you have to do is touch a part of the story, and the person fills in the rest of the story because it's their story. So I always say, start with the heart, move to the mind. And the really good entrepreneurs, the Steve Jobs of the world, are these amazing storytellers. And they put you into the moment of struggle at the top of the movie, and they make you feel that emotion that's a feeling you have. Wallow around in it a little bit, and then they provide the solution. They're also tenacious because they're just getting hammered left and right. So there has to be a resilience associated with those entrepreneurs at the end of the day. And then one of the most important ones is they have to be coachable.
How do you know that they're going to be resilient? Do you have questions? Because I know you're very thoughtful and intentional about this in terms of how they grew up, times they've had adversity in their life, and why you're going to deploy capital into this founder.
So you can do a couple things, which is you can talk about, tell me a time when. And first of all, you see how vulnerable they're willing to be. Like, tell me a weakness. The other thing that entrepreneurs are, they're good at manifesting. They're very action biased. So they iterate really quickly. So we'll have a conversation. We'll suggest a couple things just from patterns. But, hey, if we look at what you're doing, you might have an issue with this or this or this. The really good ones will go out, figure out what was and what was useful and what we said, and we'll quickly test it and come back to us and say, hey, you know what? That there is some truth there. This and this and this, not such an issue. Phil Stutz talks about HIPAA, which is not the healthcare stuff. Humility, ignorance, beginner's mind, spiritual poverty. Every day you go back to zero. You may have had 2 great days, but if you're not hitting it this morning, you go back to zero. You lose all the momentum. And anonymousness. Can you actually go through a meeting and have no one know who you were?
Kaiser Soze.
Yes, with the limp.
Yeah.
But it's really powerful. But yet our ego, our predisposition with our ego is to say, look how amazing I am. Let me peacock. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is one of the biggest issues I have to deal with because venture, this is baked into like the norms, right? Let me tell you about all the amazing things I've done. I peacocked a little bit on this call.
Well, we asked you.
We're seeking knowledge. Yeah.
We want you to peacock on this.
But the really good coaches will literally just ask questions. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal is every day to try and show up with a little less ego, a little more curiosity, better question, better listening. What's
the story behind how there are not more people that look like Bennie and I getting funding from venture capital firms?
I think there are a couple of thoughts I have around this. Like my wheelhouse, like half my CEOs are women. Mm-hmm. And I know why that is because I grew up with an immense smart mom. Bennie, I know you grew up with an incredibly smart mom. Mm-hmm. But that's not the norm for a lot of folks. I think one of it is when you sheer numbers, if I look at the business plans coming in, there are not a lot of people of color coming in. You can't be what you can't see. Mm-hmm. All communities are driven by who are the heroes who went before. So if you don't know who the unicorns are, then you don't know who to seek as a mentor, to get angel funding from, to help, with their network, all of this. Now take a look at a person of color. Like, who looks like me? Who is my network? Do I really believe, like, these limiting beliefs, right, that, we all have as children? So this is network effect, and there's a limiting belief effect that all plays into this. And so it's a really heavy lift to try and figure this out.
Where do you see the most opportunity in the future?
What's interesting about venture is you'll see that the next revolution is always 6 months away. If I think about my best plays, has been finding the next gen technology that solves the problem from before. The reason why consumers are out of favor right now, investing-wise, is there isn't a new acquisition channel. But I was very early on in backing some of the top players in performance marketing. And we saw firsthand how it just, like Amazon, right? Amazon went after the brick and mortar folks by using internet acquisition, plus all the logistics back end. So you had all the wave of all the internet players. Then you had all the mobile first players. Suddenly you could do it off your phone and knew where you were. Social, Facebook acquisition, Instagram was another one. Yeah. Glossier, right? So you have these waves that occur based on new acquisition channels, and the existing players don't know how to leverage that new channel. But the native plays do.
Well, Matt, man, really appreciate you joining the Gridiron Growth Podcast. It's always good to see you. Always good to enjoy conversation with you, man. You gave us a lot of great gems.
Amazing.
This is awesome. And I guess one last thing I would just say for all of us is venture and entrepreneurship is a microcosm of life. Just find the people who are the best at doing what you do. Get curious. Say, hey, how did you do this? Then do a little gap analysis from where you are and where they are. And just try and improve a little bit each day, but in service to someone else.
Everybody, it's Mr. Matt McCall. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.